Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to another exciting installation or installment of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Teacher Certification course. Wherever you are, please be seated. Thank you for joining us. If you're joining us online, you can go ahead and go to, of course, you're already there, probably on Facebook. And if you don't have yourself a book, you can click on the link at the top of the page, and you'll see a drop-down menu with about 4 different books on it. We're in the Acceptance Unit Teacher's Manual, and we're going to be picking up tonight, let's see, where Chris left off. We're on Chapter 7, My Choices and My Future, of course. And we're going to try to get through this tonight. We're going to try to end it tonight, okay? That's our goal, remember? We got a positive goal. We're going to try to finish this book tonight so we can start on the next unit in the next class. But my choices and my future. And I believe Chris left off where he was doing the role plays on page 147, Be Prepared When the Heat is On. And just to do a quick recap of what he did last class on page 147 at the top. And in fact, let me go back to LP7A. Let's go back to LP7A real quick. Or not LP7A, LP7E. On number 8 on role play, I'm going to go ahead and read this again just to refresh us. It says, role play, be prepared when the heat is on. This activity on page 147 to 150 in our handbooks will acquaint students with real-life situations and practical ways to make right choices when faced with the pressure of negative influences. Allow students to act out each scene, then discuss the questions. Prompt students to realize that there can be many ways to achieve a positive outcome. The most important thing is to avoid a choice that could cause harm to anyone. That's the most important thing they need to learn from this. There could be many, many different options for them, that can be presented through the peaceful solution here, but they have to choose the option that doesn't bring harm to themselves or somebody else, and that's the most important thing they want to learn from this. Go back to page 147. It says, learning to solve problems in a positive moral way is a sign of maturity. To solve problems positively requires evaluating your options and making the right decision. Now, let's turn back to LP7A. I believe it's the note to the teacher, LP7A. And I want to read this top paragraph to remind us about the decision-making process. It says the decision-making process is that ability to gather facts and then decide on a course of action based on moral principles and integrity is something we must train our children to do if they are to avoid those choices that lead to failure and embrace those that lead to success. Because life is, after all about choices. So this decision-making process, remember, it's just the ability to gather facts, which is getting this education, gathering the true facts, and then deciding on a course of action, a course of action that's not going to bring harm to themselves or somebody else, which is based on moral principles. Remember, moral means these are rules that are just and fair. They don't bring harm to yourself, others, or the environment. We learned that in the character unit. And integrity. Remember the word integrity in the character unit on page, I don't remember the page right offhand, but it meant integrity is when you internalize these positive character traits and you apply them in every situation on a consistent basis, not just, picking and choosing when we're going to do the right thing, but consistently making choices that don't bring harm to yourself, others, or the environment. That's integrity, okay? Integrity is, remember the word integral means whole. It's what makes us whole, Think about all the positive character traits a peaceful solution teaches. If we're a person of integrity, we're actually we're actually practicing each one of these character traits consistently in our life on a consistent basis, not just when we feel like it or when it's convenient for us, but always doing what we've learned from the peaceful solution on a consistent basis. Let's go back to page 147. So to solve problems positively requires evaluating your options and making the right decision. Making a right choice requires determination and practice. So notice, it's going to take determination on our part, which is a positive character trait, and it's going to take practice, and more practice. And this is one of the things we try to get authorities to realize, especially judges or agencies that send people to the peaceful solution, where they've gotten themselves in some kind of trouble, and they send them to the program, and we try to get the agencies, the caseworkers, to realize that look, they're just learning moral character. It's not something that they're probably going to make some mistakes. They're probably going to make some bad choices along the way. It's not going to be perfectly smooth. In fact, now that they're learning moral character, they're going to get tested with what they learn. So they're going to have some curveballs and pitfalls, and there's going to be some times that they might not remember what they learned, or they might not even apply what they learned because it's something they're practicing. Okay, and there's going to be times when they don't live up to the things that they've been learning, but we got to give them time. We got to give them room to grow. We got to give them. We don't want to give them rope to hang themselves, of course. We need to. What we want to do is we want to give them the space to make these changes and not expect too much at once. It's not realistic to think someone's just going to change their whole life overnight. They might change one aspect of themselves, through the use of the peaceful solution right away. They might start learning right away to control the emotion of anger. They might start learning that they're actually in control of that emotion. And where they didn't realize before, they thought that somebody else controlled their emotions. Somebody else pulled their strings. Somebody else, they probably allowed people to do that. But with the information that they gain, they can quickly see that, hey, wait a minute, I'm in control of the decisions I make. I'm in control of the choices that I'm choosing here, not somebody else. Okay, and that's a big thing in people's lives when they learn these things. And it can make a huge difference right away in someone's life. But we got to give them time to practice. You have to set your mind in advance to stand up for what is moral and proper, even if it means standing alone. By setting your mind in advance and by using the knowledge you've gained, you can avoid making choices that could ruin your future and your life. So be prepared to give the right answer based on the right choice. Act out the following skits as a mean of practicing making right choices. And Chris already did number one. I'm going to do the second one. We're not going to do every one of them. We're going to do the second one and we'll move on. But I want you to remember what Chris said about when you act these out, when you have children do the role play. Don't make a mockery out of it. You don't want it to be something that's funny in their mind, because you want them to see the seriousness of learning how to reject the negative influences and make the right choices. So role play number 2. It says on page 148, it says, there's narrator. It says, Preston and Jay are attending summer school for failing math class last year. During the break, Preston asks Jay, and it says, Preston, hey man, do you want to smoke? Jay, I don't smoke. Preston, no man, I don't mean that kind. It's a joint. Come on, I know where we can smoke it. There's a couple guys waiting for us there. Okay, now here's the question you have for the discussion on this scenario. So what is the problem? Well, the problem is Preston wants Jay to smoke some marijuana. And he's also trying to get him to skip school. And, for both of those things, there can be some serious consequences at that age. So number 2 says, list a negative choice Jay could make and the consequence. And it says, Jay could agree to go with Preston and smoke the joint. And he could be caught leaving school and be in trouble with the school and his parents. If he did drugs, he could harm his mind and body. And number 3 says, what are 2 positive moral choices Jay could make? And it says, Jay could say, hey, I thought you were smarter than this. You know, this is the same reason we're in summer school. We were always fooling around when we should have been in class. I'm not going. I don't want to be a dropout. Being here already taught me a lesson. Jay could say no and walk away. That's a pretty great answer right there that he just gave. You you would think, being in summer school that they would have learned their lesson, but sometimes some people takes more lessons, the other night I got a text from one of the students here, student teacher trainees. He sent me an article. You can put up that first slide. This is something that, Jay could, if Jay has a phone, he could put his phone to use and he could send this article that I got about statistics on teen marijuana use. He could share it with his friend. Remember about gathering information, because in teens, their age, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and especially with the prevailing attitude about drugs right now in this country, especially marijuana, the legalization of marijuana in certain places, there's a lot of mixed messages in children's minds now about marijuana and it's the danger of marijuana, so to speak. They don't really think there's much danger to it when they're legalizing it. And this is from verywell.com. It says statistics on teen marijuana use. Some of the myths about marijuana is not addictive. Marijuana doesn't affect driving. And if you go on to read this article, I'm not going to read the article, but it tells you that it is addictive. It's highly addictive. Not to mention it leads to other drugs. It's what's called a gateway drug. It's kind of like cigarettes leads to marijuana. Marijuana leads to, who knows, acid, cocaine, some other kind of drug. Okay. Marijuana, it says marijuana, a myth is marijuana doesn't affect driving. They say over most alcohol-related accidents with teenagers also involve marijuana. So it's not true that marijuana is not involved. Another myth that teens believe marijuana is legal. Well, it might be legal in 17 states, but it's not legal for a teen, is it? Is it legal for a teen? No, because they're under 21, so it wouldn't be legal for them anyway, so that's a myth, okay? Another myth is marijuana is harmless. I've been a firm believer. I used to smoke marijuana in my younger years, and I can tell you right now, the one drug that they actually believe is the most harmless is probably the most harmful, because it's the drug, as I said, that leads to other things, okay? And it does a lot of damage. If you'll notice here, it says marijuana use among teens can be particularly problematic because it can impact the following. Number one, attention. At a time that they need to learn to pay attention, right? In school and to instructions. And, they're learning. They're in a stage in their life where they're learning. And they need to learn to follow instructions. And they need to be able to make decisions with a clear mind. Notice it affects decision making. Decision making. This is what we're talking about right here. The ability to gather information and make decisions that are moral. Are they going to be able to do that with a clouded mind, a mind clouded with marijuana? They're not going to be able to make decisions in the classroom. They'll probably look at the chalkboard and think, man, that's pretty cool, man. That trigonometry question, man, that's way out there, man. That's pretty cool. Sitting there looking at the chalkboard, vegging out, right? But do you think they're going to be able to do the equation, to solve the problem when their mind is... No. I know, I've been there. So I already know it's not possible. Okay? In fact, marijuana doesn't motivate you to do math or any kind of work, as a matter of fact. It motivates you to eat, motivates you to sit around and vegetate on the couch and play video games and watch television and just kind of zone out. But it doesn't help you, motivate you to do anything. You can sit there for hours just watching television. It also affects your inhibition and your impulse control, meaning things you wouldn't normally do. You kind of let it all hang out and start doing things you shouldn't do, which remember, one thing leads to another with drugs. One thing leads to another. You get high, that leads to doing other things you wouldn't normally do, which leads to other things you wouldn't normally do, which leads to other things. It's just one thing after another, and it's not something positive. Those things that they lead to are nothing positive. Verbal fluency, it affects your verbal fluency, your learning ability, and your memory. These are all things that are extremely important at a young age, okay? So, these myths about how safe marijuana is compared to alcohol, you'll always hear these arguments. But the ones that make these arguments, they don't read much. If you start asking them questions and you start pointing things out to them from information like you see here in this article, which, by the way, you should go and read that article. It's actually an excellent article. But when you get the information, the more information you get about these things, first of all, the better equipped you're going to be to give an answer to somebody that says, oh, it's harmless. That stuff's not addictive. It's safe. It's safer than alcohol. And you can drive when you're high and it doesn't affect you, like alcohol does, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Excuse after excuse. People that try to justify the use of marijuana, they're just like I used to be when I justified anything that I did that I knew it was wrong. Okay? They're just trying to justify it because they don't want to stop doing it. But once they learn, hopefully later in life they learn and they stop using it, guess what? They're going to sound just like I sound right now. They're going to be telling their children the same thing I'm telling the children right now. Because they're going to realize once they get this education, this information, that what they believed was actually a myth. It was a lie. It wasn't based on actual true facts. It was based on the facts as they wanted to present them at the time, or they wanted to hear them at the time. Okay? Let's see. So Jay could also say no and walk away. Sometimes the best thing to do is say no and walk away, not sit there and give them time to talk you into doing something you shouldn't do. Sometimes if you stay there and you engage them, you might get talked into it. So sometimes the best thing to do is just walk away, but always leave them with something, You want to warn them because remember, he's his friend. They're supposed to be friends. Okay? And even though they don't really know what friends are at this time, because they haven't learned the peaceful solution yet, they have to start somewhere. And one place they can start being a friend is pointing out to them, hey, like Jay did here. I thought you were smarter than this. This is why we're in summer school. We need to do better. We need to make better choices. I'm not going. I don't want to be a dropout. And by Jay doing that, he might encourage, Preston to do the same thing. Preston might stop and think about it later on. He might not think about it right away. He might go ahead and smoke that joint. But later on that evening or the next day or something when, Jay doesn't continue hanging out with him, he might think, man, I kind of miss my friend, and he might change his mind. He might start to see the error of his way. Who knows? All right, so let's go ahead and turn over to, let's see, LP. Let's go back to the lesson plan notes here. LP7E. There's a song here. It's called Life's Choices, and it says, instruct students to turn to page 151 in their handbooks and read along as you play the song entitled Life's Choices from the Teacher's Manual audio lesson. So I particularly really like this song because it really sticks. It's a song I heard years and years and years ago, and it always sticks in my head about choices. Whenever I think about choices and making right choices, this is a song that comes to my mind. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to listen to this song. Let's go ahead and put up the first slide. You don't start the song yet. I want you to consider something before, as you're watching this. First of all, there's the lyrics you'll be able to follow along with. If you notice, you'll see a path. You'll see two paths. And I showed this picture to a 5-year-old. And you know what the 5-year-old told me? He said, well, which one's the right path? Which one's the right path? Well, there's a light. There's on the left path, there's a big light at the end of the path there. That looks pretty enticing, doesn't it? On the other path, looks kind of lonely. Doesn't look like there's much there. It does. Looks kind of dark, actually. Dark path. But let's see which path we should take. By the end of the video, we'll see. Sometimes the light at the end of the tunnel could be a train coming your way. Let's go ahead and play the song.
There are circumstances that are beyond our control, where it seems we don't have options if the truth was told. We can sit right back and moan and groan, it will never change our test. Or we can look at it positively, determined to do our best. Your attitude determines what your life's path will be. The choices that you make today may affect you adversely. You alone have the power to choose between wrong or right. If you choose the wrong path, it could take away your life. If we only focus on the things we cannot change, we will never even try to improve and rearrange. We will not have a future, we'll be living in the past, holding on to grudges and feelings that should have passed. Your attitude determines what your life's path will be. The choices that you make today may affect you adversely. You alone have the power to choose between wrong or right. If you choose the wrong path, it could take away your life. Your life, it's a choice that's up to you. Will you just give up, or will you improve? Life may hand us lemons, let's make lemonade. Focus on the positive, and we will have it made. Because attitudes determine what our life's path will be. The choices that we make today may affect us adversely. We alone have the power to choose between wrong or right. If we choose the right path, we will have a better life. Our attitudes determine what our life's path will be. The choices that we make today may affect us adversely. We alone have the power to choose between wrong or right. If we choose the right path, we will have a better life. We will have a better life. We will have a better life.
Okay, can you hear me? You like that song? Yeah, I like that's an awesome song. Actually, I like that song. I'd like to listen to it again. But we won't yet. If we have time at the end, we might listen to it again. But notice the choose a path. You thought that light at the end of the path on the first slide there was a bright future. Well, that bright future could look like a nuclear explosion if you choose the wrong path. We need to choose the right path. And our attitude, like the song says, it determines what path we're going to take. It's all about attitude. We need to change our attitude, the way we think, and the only way we can do that is through this Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, moral discipline, moral education. We're not going to be able to do it any other way, It's really easy to be fooled about what path to take if you don't have all the information. Remember what we learned a little while ago about what it said on LP7A, the note to the teacher. I want to read that one more time, where it said, the decision-making process is that ability to gather facts and then decide on a course of action based on moral principles, and integrity is something we must train our children to do if they're to avoid those choices that lead to failure. Because to them, that path might look really great. They might think, man, if I take that path there, or that course of action, that course of life, that mode of life, if I go that direction, man, I'm going to have a great time. I'm going to have lots of money. I'm going to have prestige. I'm going to be famous. Well, guess what? The light at the end of the tunnel, like I said, could be a nuclear explosion, could be a train coming your way. And you think it's just, you're like that fly that looks at the light, that mosquito that looks at the zapper. It's so beautiful. Get to the light. Destroys your life, right? But you're attracted to the light because you think it's a great thing. It's glimmering and it's shining, like Chris was talking about. The glitter and the glamour of Hollywood and the glitter of the glamour that they offer out here, saying, oh yeah, this is wonderful, go this way. You're going to have all these friends, you're going to be somebody. Just choose this path here. Well, you have to be educated and you have to know the difference between right and wrong, moral and immoral, and the only way you can learn these things is through the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. So let's look at, we're going to go now to we're going to go back to the lesson plan again, LP7E, because we need to read the final step here. Step 10, it says, have students read the section entitled What I Have Learned on page 152 of their handbooks, and conclude the lesson by reminding students that there are many ways to practice the character trait of acceptance. And that's what we've been learning here in this book, this character trait of acceptance. The concept of acceptance involves several aspects. Remind them that they should accept the positive moral characteristics of others, regardless of their differences. Accepting that they are special and unique with the ability and potential to achieve great things means being aware that the choices they make today can affect them for life. Encourage students to make wise choices and always practice what they've been taught in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. Got a fly up here. Okay, so let's go ahead and look on page 152 at what we've learned in this book. And then we're going to be kind of skimming through, looking at reminding ourselves of some of the things that we learned throughout this unit. And the first thing we've learned is we are all born with certain physical traits that we have no control over. There's not one of us here that chose to be born where we were born, the color of our skin, the shape of our nose, the color of our eyes, etc. None of us had any choice in this. Some of us were born with certain birth defects, okay? None of us chose that, okay? None of us made those choices, but these are things that we didn't have any control over. Let's turn back to page, LP1A, all the way back in the beginning of the book, LP1A. And at the top it says, we currently live in a world where the inability to accept ourselves and those around us has led to problems ranging from depression and low self-worth to violence and war. So notice, this lack of acceptance isn't a small thing. This has led to world wars, okay? But it's also led to school bullying, and that's a huge problem in America, the school bullying, and depression. It's led to suicide. Okay, these are things that these are very, very serious matters here that this lack of acceptance has led to. Children who are unable to appreciate their positive character traits and who do not think that life has meaning and value will inevitably make decisions that will rob them of a purposeful, fulfilling life. Not only can they effectively remove themselves from the joys that life offers when they disregard true moral values, but they also take, by teasing and bullying, that joy from others. Notice that. They steal the joy that other people should have in life by teasing, bullying, not valuing, disregarding these true moral values, disregarding the value of that person, the value of that person's feelings, not even having regard for it. These things are robbing, stealing joy from other people that they should be able to have in life. So we need to keep that in our mind. Also, let's turn over to page 1 as we're making our journey through the book again here. Page 1. In the note to the student, in the second paragraph, it says, well, let's start at the top. Just what does it mean to accept yourself and others? The answer to this question is both simple and complex. Needless to say, everyone has aspects of his personality, character, and physical characteristics that he would like to improve in some way, shape, or form. In other words, no one's perfect. Even though there are things we might want to change about ourselves, we must be willing to identify the things about our character, personality, and physical traits that are positive and worthwhile. If you can put up this next slide, I want to show you, I want to remind you from page 1 and page 6, there's some things that we cannot change, okay? And these are called fixed traits. We learned about these fixed traits back in the character unit when we talked about heredity, okay? Fixed traits are like, how tall or short we are, how big our feet are, the length of our nose, our skin color, our eye color, when or where we were born. These are things that we can't change, okay? So remember what we just heard in the song Life's Choices about if we only focus on the things we cannot change, then we'll never even try to improve or rearrange. If all we want to focus on is, how big our nose is or, these things that we don't have any control over, we'll never make the effort to change the things that we do have control over, which in the next slide, if you can go to the next slide, these are the things we can change from page 1 and page 6. We can change our character, okay? We can change our attitude. We can change our intellect. We can get information. We can get knowledge. We can gain knowledge. Remember, knowledge is power. We can change our manners. We can start saying please and thank you instead of just taking for granted that, things are given to us. We can change our manners. We can change the way we interact with other people. We can change how we treat other people. We can change how we view other people. And, the best tool for that is the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, because I know lots of guys here, lots of men that have taken the course that tell me all the time, you know what, I wouldn't have even hung around a person like you, if I wasn't taking the Peaceful Solution, right? A lot of us would even hang around each other, but we have something in common. All of us have something in common. You know what it's called? We all want to develop a positive moral character. We all want to see peace in our environment. We want to see peace in the world. We want to make a difference in people's lives, in our environment, and we want to make a difference in the world. All of us do. We might not, we might rub each other the wrong way sometimes, and we might not even like the way each other look, the way, how we dress, or certain things about each other, personality type things. But one thing we all have in common is we have that moral, positive character in common. We all have that desire to be honest, the desire to be respectful, the desire to be practicing self-control in every situation. And, those are the things that matter the most. That's what matters the most, having character, positive moral character in common. Let's go back over to page We're going to be jumping around a lot here. Let me get back on what we've learned here on page 152. The second point says, rather than stress over the size of my nose, height, or shoe size, I will instead focus on what I can control, like my attitude, my future, my health, and how I treat others. Okay, remember, those are things we can change. Those are the things we need to be focusing on. All right, the third point says, accepting myself as a unique individual helps me to appreciate the uniqueness in others. So if we're unique, we're one of a kind, well, so is somebody else. Okay, look over to page 6. Over to page 6. Actually, hold on a minute. Let me see. I think I have a slide for that. Well, we can start on page 6 and kind of skim through here a little bit. Page 6. Let's look in the middle. It says, don't get the idea that as young men and women, you shouldn't be concerned about your physical appearance. Everyone should want to look his or her best. But it would be wise to understand there's things about your appearance that you might not be able to change. And it's important to keep in mind that being beautiful or handsome are not all that matters. So if you have some physical characteristics that you cannot change, the shape of your nose, your height, or the sound of your voice, you can still make the best of who you are. You're more than just your physical appearance. And toward the bottom it says, what really counts more than your physical appearance, as you will learn, is what you will become within your mind, your character, and what you choose to be. In the meantime, be diligent to continue to work on the inside just as diligently as you work on improving your outward appearance. It's who you are on inside that really affects how people see you on the outside. And I know that's kind of like an old cliche, you've heard certain people might not be physically attractive, but they're very beautiful on the inside. It's a true statement. But is it that person's fault that they were born the way they look? What if they do have birth defects they were born with? And, what if they do only have one arm or one eye or something like that? Is that their fault? Is that something they should be ridiculed about and something that they should be humiliated with and reminded of constantly by other people, by the teasing and the taunting, which could lead to that person having a very low feeling of self-worth and be depressed and possibly lead to suicide? And do we have the right to steal their joy from them like that? If we weren't focused on all those things about other people, they wouldn't be focused on it either. Do you know that? They wouldn't even be focused on it, because if nobody's telling them how strange they look, right? They're not even going to think that way. They're not going to be thinking of those things. It's not going to bother them so much as it would if everybody's always looking at them like, they're from some other planet. It says, this can result in depression and could seriously interfere with your ability to interact in meaningful ways with those around you. In other words, you could become a social recluse or introvert, which you don't want to do. You don't want to keep to yourself and just remain alone. You want to interact with people. You want to learn to interact with people in a positive way. Let's turn over to page 8. And in the middle of the page it says, keep in mind that you're not going to be a teenager forever. Your looks are going to change. Focus on educating yourself in moral development to achieve your highest potential. You don't have to be an adult to be a leader. If you're in middle school, you could be a leader in your school by making right choices and leading people in the right direction in your classroom. That's what they're looking for. They need a leader that will stand up for what's right. Somebody that will be respectful to the teacher, someone that will show them proper manners when it comes to talking to adults, and how to treat one another in their daily interactions with one another, how to solve conflicts. Children need somebody that's a role model to show them how to solve conflicts in a peaceful manner, where they don't get all agitated and start raising their voice and threatening and things like this, using their fists or, threatening to use their fists or weapons, etc. They need somebody that can stand up to the drugs and say no, like Jay did in the lesson, or in the thing we just read. Okay, it says let's look. Well, let's actually go back to the what we've learned on page 152. It says, what's important is how we are on the inside. It's the color of a person's character that matters, not the color of his or her skin. And remember what we learned. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide about intolerance. Remember what we learned about intolerance and what it leads to? Not being tolerant and not accepting of other people's culture, skin color, etc. Intolerance leads, or even religion. Could be someone's religion. Any of someone's differences, not being tolerant of someone's differences. It leads to the devaluing of human life, violence, conflicts, hate, distrust, and fear, but it doesn't lead to anything positive. Okay? And remember what I said, it leads to wars. It leads to fighting and wars. It leads to depression and suicide and all these really, really horrible things that don't need to be taking place at all if people would just simply learn to tolerate one another and value one another for who we are and our differences. Remember what we learned? That was on page 29. Remember on page 32 what we learned about the apples. Remember there was different types of apples? But all the apples had something in common. Even though they had different colors and different flavors, they were all the same color on the inside. They were all the same on the inside. And they had seeds, etc., right? Okay? Remember the apple a day is what we learned. We learned about, we need to value those differences, because you can't use the same apple for the same, recipe. Sometimes you need different flavored apples to have apple pie and applesauce or whatever else you'd like. Apple juice. Not all apples will work for apple juice or applesauce or apple pie. So it's great that we have the variety. Isn't it great we have a variety of people? I mean, really, are we this is 2022. Are we, you think about this for a minute. We're really still stuck on that? We're still stuck on skin color? We're still stuck on that? We're still stuck on differences like people's different belief systems and stuff. We're still stuck on that? Not in the peaceful solution. We're moving on. We're moving forward. Okay? We're not even thinking about these things anymore. We shouldn't be. We shouldn't look at each other like this anymore. Page 39, we learned that one of the most important ways to reduce intolerance is to regard others with the same care and compassion as you regard yourself. Remember, showing people respect. That's respect in a nutshell, showing that person the same care and compassion as you want shown to you. Would you want somebody to be pointing out to you your physical flaws? We all have them. I know what mine are. I don't need you to tell me I walk like a duck. I know my feet go inverted when I walk sometimes. I understand that. I know me better than you. I know what I do. I know what I'm capable of, and I know what I look like. I look at myself in the mirror. I know everything about myself quite well. I don't need you to point out my flaws. I got plenty of them. Everybody has some. Okay? But that's okay. You think I want to walk like that? No. My feet go a certain way. That's my feet. I can't help that. And you can try to put me in a class to train me how to walk properly, and it's still not going to work, because guess what? My feet do a certain thing that yours don't. And you know what? That makes me unique. It makes me different. Okay? And we all have that uniqueness. That's not something I'm really, really excited about, but nonetheless, I'm going to embrace it. I'm not going to act like it don't occur. I'm just letting you know that all of us know what's wrong with us. We know the things that are wrong with us physically. We can see them. We don't need somebody to point them out to us. Okay. All right, so remember, Martin Luther King said it. He said, It'll be a great day in America when people are judged not on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. Okay? How they are. How do they treat people? It doesn't matter what they look like on the outside. What are they like on the inside? What kind of moral character do they have? Okay, the next point, it says, having learned to accept others and myself, I now know the importance of having healthy interactions. So let's turn to page 44 in our book about interaction. And interaction, it says, simply means the way we affect and influence each other. Our most important means of interaction is communication. We communicate with each other both verbally and physically. Sharing our thoughts and feelings with each other is the basis of our communication. Could you imagine being joyful, sad, upset, or scared and having no way to share that information with anyone? Let's look at the next slide. Remember what we learned on pages 45 through 49 about, it's not how you say it, or it's not what you say, but how you say it. And we learned about, body language. We learned about facial expressions. All these are part of communication. And actually in the next book, in the next unit, in the self-control unit, we're going to go deeper into that. But we learned about, the facial expressions, the body language. These are all part of communication, but also listening. Remember, listening was the important part of communication. It's the most important part of communication. We need to be willing to listen to other people. Really listen, not just listening with our ear, but listening with our heart, with our eyes, watching the body language, the facial expressions, listening to the tone of voice, etc., to get a full picture of what they're actually trying to communicate to us. We need to hone these skills. We need to learn, those are actually something that I never even thought of until I took the peaceful solution. I didn't really consider all that part of communication. I just thought communication was, I talk, you listen, and I do more talking than listening, right? I'm one of those ones. I'd sit there and somebody talking to me, I'd be like, I'm just waiting to talk. I'm not really hearing what they're saying. I'm just waiting. I'm thinking about how I'm going to reply to what they're saying. But we need to move past that. We need to practice. Remember, we're practicing. We're practicing learning how to communicate. We're practicing proper communication and healthy interaction with one another. And these are all part of it. Let's see. The next one says, the next point on page 152 says, respectfully using my words as well as being aware of my tone of voice, facial expressions, and body language when interacting with others can lead to strong, positive, honest, moral relationships. Okay? So notice, it can only improve your relationship building skills when we learn how to be aware of our tone of voice, our facial expressions, and body language. And when we learn to listen to others. When we learn to listen, people pay big money for people to listen. You know that. They pay a psychiatrist, $100 an hour, and they'll sit there and tell them all their problems, and they don't care that the psychiatrist isn't giving them any solutions. They just want someone to talk to. But they really need solutions, and that's the beauty of the peaceful solution is not only will you be able to listen, you'll be able to offer a solution to their problem. Because we're here learning solutions. We're not here just learning about problems, right? We're here to learn to give people solutions, and that's what people need. The next point says, these skills in communication can enable me to choose positive, encouraging friends with the same moral character. And we learned in chapter 4 about the importance of friends and friendships. If you can turn to page 61. And it says at the top in that thought cloud, positive moral interactions can make friends out of enemies. Did you know that? You can actually make friends out of enemies using the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. Remember what we learned about true friends. We learned about what a friend is on page 62. A friend is one who supports, respects, encourages, and accepts you as a unique individual with all your flaws, etc. Because none of us are perfect. Friends can come in all shapes and sizes and from all walks of life. Friends can come from all nationalities and ethnicities. It's important not to cut yourself off from getting to know someone because they're different. But remember about choosing friends, on page 63, about deciding to be friends, there's these 5 stages. If you think you want to be friends with someone, you need to go through these 5 stages: the observation stage, the introductory stage, the getting to know you stage, and the deciding stage. And notice at the bottom of page 63, it says true friendship comes from the heart. It requires commitment, respect, and concern for one another. And if you show the next slide, remember on page 55, we learned about negative selfish relationships and how they hurt. And if you're in a negative selfish relationship, it says do not downplay or ignore abusive treatment. Don't just live with the abuse. That means you don't retaliate for the abuse, but you do something about, getting that person that's doing the abuse help. Okay? Get them enrolled in the Peaceful Solution. Give us a call. We'll be glad to help. Talk to someone you trust who will listen and recognize how serious your situation is. Never try to retaliate or get even. People with moral character will handle even the worst situation in a positive way. Don't ever forget that. I don't care what kind of abuse you're going through. Always handle even the worst situation in a positive way. Let's turn back to page 152, the next point. I must choose friends who are interested in moral values, as we learned from the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, in order to avoid peer pressure and conformity. Remember on page 62, we learned about who is a friend, deciding to be friends. And then on page 68 and 69, we learned about positive and negative conformity. Remember, conformity, there's nothing wrong with conforming to something as long as it's positive. Okay? But conforming to this negative behavior should never be something that we choose to do. The next point says, my ability to help others and make a difference in their lives give my life purpose. And that's from chapter 5. There's a purpose to it all. Can you show the next slide? By the way, I kind of skipped this slide here. On page 70, remember we learned about stereotyping and cliques, and joining cliques that cast other people aside. We don't want to do that. We don't want to get involved in these, unhealthy relationships with people. We don't want to shut ourselves off from people by joining groups and shunning certain people. We shouldn't do that. We should want to make as many friends as we possibly can with as many people as we possibly can. And also, remember on page 81, we learned about you're known by the company you keep. So be careful about the friends that you're making. Because even though you might not be partaking in the behavior they're partaking in, you're going to be known by the company you keep. They're going to think that you must partake of drugs if you're hanging around someone that's selling drugs or someone that's using drugs. So you don't want to be hanging around these types of people. You want to make sure that you always choose your friends wisely. The next point says, my ability to help others and make a difference in their lives give my life purpose. And that was chapter 5. There's a purpose to it all. Okay? Look on the next slide. Remember on page 88, we learned about helping others. It gives us value and worth. Okay? Our ability to help others makes a difference in our lives. Remember on page 98, we learned about time builders and time busters. Time builders, read a book or study. Take up a positive hobby like gardening, art, carpentry, sewing, singing, or playing a musical instrument. Assist your family and community. This makes a difference in your life and their lives. Time busters are watching TV shows with explicit sex or violence, playing violent video games, sitting around by yourself or with friends doing nothing. Okay? That should never be an option. You should never be bored. There's plenty to do if you just look. There's plenty of positive things you can get involved in if you just look around. The next point says, the knowledge that my life has meaning and value gives me a positive direction in which to grow and mature and teach others. If that's on page 91, where there's meaning, there's purpose. Another important aspect of accepting that your life has meaning is to determine what your purpose in life is. Everyone's life has purpose. Everyone. The problem is that people sometimes get caught up in the daily grind. In other words, they begin to see their daily activities and functions as routine, boring, or monotonous. They fail to realize that their interactions are helpful. Okay? And then they think life is boring and I don't have much of a future, so I might as well live for the moment and go get high or go get drunk or go do whatever I feel like doing, which, living for the moment leads to some really bad scenes. And, there's not, a life without purpose is a life out of control. You need to learn your purpose and not get involved in things that can destroy your ability to reach your positive goals and your purpose in life. Which leads to the next point. Learning to set positive, honest, moral, realistic goals will help me to achieve my purpose in life and will also enable me to resist negative conformity. If you can show the next slide. Remember on page 110, we learned about being a goal setter, where you can set short-term goals, and you can set long-term goals, and you can set as many goals as you want, short-term goals to reach your long-term goals. But write your goals down. Write your goals down. Catan went over this extensively about goal setting, and I thought he did a wonderful job. But writing your goals down so you can keep, keep track of your progress. If you write those goals down, you can actually have a visual idea of how you're progressing along, and it gives you a sense of that you're accomplishing something when you can see that you're making progress in those goals. So write your goals down. Remember, page 112, we learned about positive goals. Positive, honest, moral goals will help you to be a better person. They're going to support your choice to develop a moral character. And it gave the example that 12-year-old Randy wants a great grade on his math. Wanting to earn it honestly, he studied and he got an A. Positive, honest, moral goals cause no harm and have no negative effects on yourself or others. And the example was John is tired of being picked on by the school bully. He plans to find a gun. No, that's not a positive goal. He plans to find a peaceful way to handle the problem by speaking to his parents and guidance counselor. And positive, honest, moral goals will help you to achieve your purpose. And the example was Valerie's purpose is to help others. Her goal is to become a nurse. Okay, so learning to set these positive, honest, moral, realistic goals will help you to achieve your purpose in life. Okay, but you got to make sure your goals, first of all, are realistic, right? Remember setting realistic goals? If you set unrealistic goals and you don't achieve those goals, you're going to give up on goal setting because you're not being realistic about what you're trying to do. Now, is it realistic to set the goal to have positive moral character in every interaction with people? Yes, it is. That's achievable. And in fact, you're one step closer today to achieving that goal. Okay? You're one step closer. The last point says, I accept that I am a unique individual with my future ahead of me. I will make choices that are positive and appreciate the life that I've been given. We've got to show, remember on chapter 7 was about my choices and my future. That's the chapter we're wrapping up on right now. We've got to show by our choices that we appreciate this life, this gift that we've been given called life. Not only have we been given a gift called life, we've been given a gift right here. It's called the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, the gift of learning how to really live life the right way. We need to show that we appreciate that gift by taking what we've learned in the Peaceful Solution, living it, practicing it, but also sharing it with other people. It's a gift that you should keep giving. It's a gift that keeps on giving. You shouldn't be hiding it under your bed or locking it in the closet. You should be sharing it with other people. Everybody needs help. Everybody needs this information because it's a dark, 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 dark world. This is the only light, that's out there, this peaceful solution. So we need to share it with other people. Can I see that next slide? we learned on page 131, about everyone makes choices every day. Make sure you can live with your choices for the rest of your life. We learned about using self-control in all of our choices, which we're going to get into in the next book. And on page 141, we learned that stop, think, and make the right choice. The choice you make today can affect you for the rest of your life. We have to remember that. Our choices can affect us for the rest of our life, so we need to make sure we can live with the choices that we're making. And finally, on page 152, it says, our society continues to advance in technology. Are we doing the same in character or moral values? The peaceful solution. Well, I say that we are. We're doing it right here, right now, aren't we? And guess what? We're advancing to the next book, right? Let's go ahead and put up that last slide so I can show you the next book. You can download it on the official Peaceful Solution Character Education Incorporated page on Facebook. It's the fourth one down on that drop-down menu, Self-Control Teacher's Manual. The next class will be on 1/16/2022, and we'll be beginning that book at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself a hand. Great job. Keep advancing. Okay, you're not done. Keep advancing. We got a lot more to go to learn. So I thank you.